Okay, we've got Dream Angel, page 228. The police constable arrived and I handed him the sheets of paper taken from each person I spoke with. His comments, you've done this before, I won't have to do anything. I went home. While I was driving home, an event happened. This was one of the luckiest days of my life. It was the most beautiful feeling of ESCAPISN I'd ever experienced. I felt myself being lifted out of darkness and thrown a lifeline. I saw the bright blue sky and knew my life was again full. I saw a clear blue sky once more in my mind, a relief to know I was no longer imprisoned in the big black hole. When I arrived at work, I was cheered by all who were there. George wanted to know how I knew what to do. George, I've investigated plenty of deaths in my time. It was natural to do what I did. He thanked me. I figured the reason why I felt wonderful and alive was because I now felt useful and worthwhile. At last, my life was in balance. I felt great. I had been through hell. Now was an opportunity to get on with life and enjoy it. Here was my opportunity to live the life I always wanted. I knew it was now up to me to control my future, not some big black hole. What was I going to do to stay normal? I needed to think positive. To think positive, researched the field to understand what I had to do. The first book I read was Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill. I read the book word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, and finally chapter by chapter until I completed after 10 times of reading. To make me understand the literature, I wrote notes from each chapter into a small book in my own words to understand. Each chapter encouraged me to move on to the next until I at last began to proceed to succeed. The thirst for knowledge was so great I went and purchased more Napoleon Hill books. I became obsessed with this lecturer and felt my world more positive by the day. I lived and breathed Napoleon Hill and understood his philosophy of success. I needed to reevaluate myself. What did I want? I knew I didn't want to fall back into that in the depression. I needed something to keep my mind positive and at the same time achieve my goals. I was satisfied with life in general, but there was a driving force inside of me to complete what I had set out to do. After I'd read and studied Napoleon Hill, I must admit I felt great within myself. This was the first time I had control of my destiny, or did I? In most of my readings, a name always popped up, Dale Carnegie. One evening, Olga and I were shopping, and since she wanted a window shop, I decided to walk to the local book shop. I walked to the self-improvement area. You wouldn't believe it when I tell you the book jumped out at me. It was none other than Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I purchased it. While Olga shopped, I sat on the seat to wait for her and read the book. By the time she came, I was so engrossed in the book I had forgotten the time, and an hour passed. This book was different to the others I'd read. I loved it. The following day at work, again, this had been fate or destiny. I don't know how these events happen in our lives. I was reading the Courier Mail when advertised in the newspaper was the Dale Carnegie course. I couldn't believe it. Here the night before, I actually accidentally came across the book written by the same person, and now advertised was his course. Was it fate? More was to follow. When I contacted the Dale Carnegie Training Centre, I was told before I was accepted I needed to be interviewed. I couldn't believe it. I was paying to do this course and they wanted to interview me before being accepted. I was interviewed by a consultant from the company at my home. Questions were asked why I wanted to do the course. I explained the studies and research I completed on self-improvement and how genuine I was to do the course. I was accepted.